This is Power Hour with Gabriella Power.
Hello and welcome to Power Hour. I'm Gabriella Power. Thank you for your company. We have a massive show coming up today, including my reaction to the protests on Sydney's Harbour Bridge at the weekend, why the Victorian government has become the laughingstock of the world yet again, and we'll bring you all the US news, including Vance is the clear frontrunner to be the next president of the United States, according to the betting markets. But let's start with media meltdowns. Former Vice President Kamala Harris has sat down with Late Show host Stephen Colbert in her first interview since losing the US election. Now, the interview was really about promoting her new book, 107 Days, which we'll get into in a moment. But Kamala finally answered a key question many of us have been asking for months now, and it's an important one. Who is leading the Democratic Party?
Who's leading the Democratic Party? I'm just curious.
There are lots of leaders. And
there's generally a leader of the Democratic Party. You know, like, oh, that's the leader of the Democratic Party. And who comes to mind?
I think there are a lot of, I'm not going to go through names because then I'm going to leave somebody out and then I'm going to hear about it. But let me say this. I think it is a mistake for us who want to figure out how to get out and through this and get out of it, to put it on the shoulders of any one person. It's really on all of our shoulders.
That's right, there's no one. The party is such a mess. It's on all of us. We're apparently all leading it along with AOC, Gavin Newsom, maybe even Hunter Biden. But as we know, Stephen Colbert was recently axed and his show will finish up next year because it was losing a crazy amount of money and people have stopped watching it, which might have something to do with his severe case of Trump derangement syndrome.
Just less than a year ago, things were very joyful. There was actually a lot of hope associated with your campaign, and there was a lot of promise that we might actually not only keep this absolute barbarian out of the White House, but also we might actually make progress as a country with the type of people that we wanted to see in office and a younger, more vital, revived political consciousness in America.
Barbarian. And of course, he had to say joy. Can someone remind Stephen Colbert of the progress the United States is making? The results are everywhere. Even CNN can't deny that Trump's administration is the most influential this century.
The Donald Trump administration is arguably the most influential this century and probably as well dating back a good portion of the last century as well. Love it, like it, lump it. Trump is remaking the United States of America. Let's talk about tariffs first, right?
Well, let's get back to Kamala Harris, who's on her book tour promoting 107 Days, which is not about her time as Vice President of the United States, where she was running the country with Joe Biden for 4 years. It was about the 107 days of her disastrous election campaign, which just tells you everything, doesn't it? Just how little she achieved as Vice President, and despite burning through $1.5 billion in a few months and all of those celebrity endorsements during the campaign, more Americans voted for Donald Trump. But I might be being too harsh. Maybe her book might have some brilliant insights, something we could all learn from her.
And that's me on a call. So you'll see my phone is actually on my lap. And you know, I know I've been teased about this, but I like these kinds of ear pods that have the thing, because I've served on the Senate Intelligence Committee. I have been in classified briefings, and I'm telling you, like, don't be on the train using your ear pods and thinking somebody can't listen to your conversation. I'm just telling you, that's a little bit more secure.
Well, wait for it, because this is her big plug, teasing you with the best parts about her book without giving all the details away so she can make those sales.
I mean, there's a lot of personal stuff in the book. I mean, poor Dougie.
You're blowing the lid off of Doug? What's going on?
For example, my birthday's in October. The election's in November. You see where I'm going. And Dougie kind of dropped the ball on my big birthday.
He didn't get you anything?
Oh, you have to read the book.
All right. Just tell me the page. Tell me the page.
Joining us now is comedian and host of Blaze TV's Primetime with Alex Stein. Alex, great to see you again. What did you make of Kamala Harris's book promotion on Stephen Colbert's show? You know, she couldn't answer when she was asked about who's leading the Democratic Party, but we know she's still upset with her husband, Doug, for not spoiling her on her birthday last year. And her advice to everyone is to not wear a pair of AirPods.
Well, 107 days, I don't think will sell 107 copies. And for her to throw her husband under the bus, I mean, think about it like this. She spent, what, $150 million, $150 billion on her campaign. Is that what it was? What was it? And she was still $100 million in debt. Don't quote me on it. I don't know her girl math. But of course, she's not going to get
amount of money.
But I'm saying he's not going to get her a gift because she's spending all this money. What is he supposed to buy her? I mean, literally, there's nothing that he could buy her that would compete with all the money that she wasted on her campaign. So it's such an egregious amount. I actually feel bad for Doug. And I'm sure he's actually so happy that she didn't win so that he could probably get a breather, because being the first fella would not be something that I would want to go down in history as the first guy doing. I'll tell you that much.
Well, this promotion of her book, it's still going, and she's posted this to TikTok.
Everyone thinks you've been kicking back, drinking margaritas on the beach. But really, you've been hard at work writing a book, meeting with leaders, thinking about the future of our country. Who said that?
She's still cringe. Does it just make you want to run out and buy this book?
No, I mean, like I said, this book is not going to be popular whatsoever. And I don't know why she would even want to relive this humiliation of a campaign and go on this media tour trying to sell it. Because really, like you said, why not talk about her time as vice president? But, in The View and anybody, asking her any tough questions when, they asked her to criticize her, time in office, she just couldn't even talk about one thing that she would have changed when Joe Biden was president. So it shows you she's just a phony. She doesn't even have a good example of her time as vice president. So now she has to write about her horrible failed campaign where $1 billion, just money was just wasted.
Let's talk about Sydney Sweeney. And the woke left are still having a meltdown over her American Eagle ad. And now we're standing by for Liberals to lose it even more after a gun training company posted a video of the actress showing off her shooting skills. Look at this.
Did not expect this for your first day.
Hey, eyes up here.
Wow.
9:21.
Oh my God, girl! Was it your first time? That was really good.
You're going dog nuts. I mean,
Reading, girl.
Yes.
It's also been revealed that Sydney Sweeney is a registered Republican, and Donald Trump was asked about this.
Actress Sydney Sweeney, it came out this weekend that she was a registered Republican. Any thoughts on that?
That who was?
Sydney Sweeney, she's like a very hot actress right now.
She's a registered Republican?
Yes.
Oh, now I love her ad. Is that right? Is Sydney Sweeney? You'd be surprised at how many people are Republicans. That's what I wouldn't have known, but I'm glad you told me that. If Sydney Sweeney is a registered Republican, I think her ad is fantastic. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Such a classic Donald Trump response, but I think he makes a good point. You'd be surprised how many people are registered Republicans.
No, you nailed it. I mean, seriously, there's so many people that have to be closeted Republicans because of fear of cancellation. And that's not, just a saying. There's real world application to people being canceled for having a conservative viewpoint, especially in Hollywood, in the modeling industry that's so incredibly progressive. So this is a win for the conservatives. Sydney Sweeney right now is as hot as hot kids when it comes to, her marketing campaign for American Eagle, I think is up 20%. Their stock value is just skyrocketed. So it just shows you that the people that support Sydney Sweeney actually go out and spend money and support these companies. So I think now this will be more companies will follow suit, seeing the success of American Eagle.
I think you're absolutely right. But the woke left will not let this go. Here is Sydney Sweeney being heckled.
About the ad, that it's being racist.
But Donald Trump is continuing his support of Sydney Sweeney. He posted, Sydney Sweeney is a registered Republican, has the hottest ad out there. It's for American Eagle, and the jeans are flying off the shelves, to your point, Alex. And he goes on to say that the tide has seriously turned. Being woke is for losers. Being Republican is what you want to be. And of course, he ends it with thank you for your attention to this matter. But, you know, I think that's a Trump style of making a point about woke is for losers. But it certainly seems that the woke era is pretty dead.
No, and it has a feeling of like nostalgia, because there was a time when Abercrombie and American Eagle were the coolest clothing companies out there. And that was kind of like it was the good old days before we realized it was the good old days. And I think that's a quote from The Office, you know, and, you know, it's a little cliche, but it's true. So seeing American Eagle have a resurgence like this, it feels kind of good in a weird way in a world where we have to take the small wins when we can get them. You know, it feels like a win.
Now, Texas Governor Greg Abbott has ordered the arrest of Texas House Democrats after a warrant was issued by Texas House Speaker, and dozens of Texas Democrats fled the state in an attempt to block a Trump-backed redistricting vote. Greg Abbott called on the Department of Public Safety to arrest the, quote, delinquent Texas House Democrats. Can you tell us a bit more about what's going on here?
Well, you know, I was there, right? I was actually there in Austin today at 3 p.m. and they locked the doors, and they said that if these, you know, representatives didn't get back to the Capitol, that they would be basically held in contempt and they would be subject to arrest. And so I really hope that they actually follow through. Now, some politicians are going to be able to get away with it. They're going to be able to say that they had some sort of, you know, actual valid excuse. But really what's happening is they're stopping the redistricting. They don't want to vote on the redistricting because it takes away, you know, a few of the liberal seats, which is good for Texas. So that's what they're doing. That's why they're running away, and that's why they're not there to approve this redistricting. So it's all just a political theater. But I'll admit this though, it did kind of have a weird vibe when you saw the politicians, you know, gleefully happy that these other politicians were about to be arrested. That felt kind of weird, and I don't know, it kind of felt like a moral conundrum at the same time. But I'm actually very happy that the conservatives held the leftists and the progressives, you know, feet to the fire, because they need to, you know, this is a derelict of duty. They should be there voting on this redistricting, but because they didn't have a quorum, they weren't able to approve it. And, you know, it's just caused a big problem at the state capitol.
Okay. Alex Stein, thanks so much for joining us. Great to talk to you.
Always a pleasure. Talk to you again soon.
Well, let's turn to what's happening here in Australia. And over the weekend, more than 100,000 pro-Palestine protesters marched along the Sydney Harbour Bridge.
Are you coming to the street? They strung up a man. They say we murdered three. Strange things that happened here. A stranger wouldn't be. We met at midnight in the hanging tree. Are you?
Now, of course, there were plenty of people there demonstrating who genuinely just want to see an end to the war like we all do. But this protest that was called March for Humanity featured the Taliban flag, chants such as death, death to the IDF, and posters of Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. And there was a lot of anger and a lot of hate directed at Israel, yet barely any condemnation of Hamas, the terror group who refused to release the hostages, who on the same day as this protest took place, released a horrifying video of Israeli hostage Aviatar David appearing to dig his own grave in a terror tunnel. Now, as I said at the start of this, not all of these protesters, but many of them who showed up there on Sunday were clearly supporting Hamas. And support for terror on Australia's most iconic landmark is absolutely disgusting. The same weekend, during a protest in Melbourne, the Australian flag was burned by masked demonstrators who also painted "Abolish Australia," and that is truly sickening. Joining us now is Sky News contributor Michael Kroger. Michael, thank you for joining us. Firstly, can I get your reaction to this March for Humanity protest that took place on Sunday?
Well, like you, I agree there were a lot of, good-hearted people who went along because they're concerned about the images they've seen of starving children in Gaza. But unfortunately, underlying all of these Palestinians' demonstrations is a healthy dose of Jewish hatred and anti-Semitism. And that's what's sickening about some elements of these demonstrations. Not only the things happen that you mentioned, but if it's a March for Humanity, why weren't there any Australian flags? Not a single Australian flag, American flag, British flag. There was an Islamic State flag. No Western country's flag was there. There were Hamas symbols, Nazi symbols, chants from the river to the sea, which is, death to Jews, et cetera, et cetera. So, what the undercurrent of these demonstrations is quite sickening, and it scares Jewish Australians, and that's disgusting. It's abominable. And, the leaders of these demonstrations need to stop all this Jewish hatred and racism.
And just images of the Australian flag being burnt. I mean, It's shocking. Is this extreme hate for the West being normalised? It's just being displayed?
Yes, well, don't forget, a lot of these demonstrations by the left are actually demonstrations against the Western civilization and Western countries. So it's why you have demonstrations against the Jews in Israel, but not against the Russians in the Ukraine. They don't care about the mass slaughter and starvation going on in the Sudan, which is many, many more times deaths and starvation than there is in Gaza. But is there a single demonstration by these people, these, humanists? Is there a single demonstration by any of them about the tragedies in Sudan or Ukraine? No, of course not, because, it doesn't tick off anti-Western culture, anti-Western civilization and Jews. Of course, if there aren't any Jews involved, a lot of these extremists, are not interested. So that's why I say there is Jewish hatred underpinning some elements in these demonstrations, and that's disgusting in a modern country like Australia today.
Let's look at the situation in Gaza. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will reportedly bring his security cabinet together this week to discuss expanding the ground offensive in Gaza. Now, the Israeli military currently holds operations in around 75% of the Gaza Strip, but under the Israeli leader's new plan, the IDF would capture the rest of the enclave. And this, of course, comes after ceasefire talks with Hamas collapsed. But we do know that Israel's under a lot of global pressure to end this war. Israel's absolutely losing the PR war about this. Many argue that Israel has gone too far. They argue that Israel has failed when it comes to delivering enough aid. What do you make of reports that Netanyahu is inclining towards actually expanding the offensive?
Well, it looks as if that's what he's going to do. But after a couple of years, people are tiring of this. The Israelis, the Jewish community worldwide never get good press. Let's accept the fact that, there is so much anti-Semitism and Jewish hatred in countries, mainly in Western countries, the hard left. It used to be the hard right, the neo-Nazis. Now it's the hard left who are, racist anti-Semites and, anything the Israelis do, anything the Israeli government does, anything the Jewish state does, they condemn. So, this is just par for the course. But what is concerning is this war has gone on for so long now. The patience of some Western leaders is being exhausted. And that's the greatest challenge for Netanyahu. 75% is not 100%. In that 25% of course, the hostages. The Israelis know where they are. The problem is they can't get to them because they're surrounded by booby traps, bombs, and Hamas militia, and they'll all be killed if the Israelis attempt to go and rescue them. That's the problem he's got, and it's a problem Gabby hasn't been able to solve in almost 2 years.
I want to quickly ask you about Russia and also President Trump. We know that Donald Trump has announced that he will be substantially raising tariffs on India because it continues to purchase Russian oil. So he took to a social media platform, his own Truth Social, saying that India is not only buying massive amounts of Russian oil, they are then, for much of the oil purchased, selling it on the open market for big profits. They don't care how many people in Ukraine are being killed by the Russian war machine. Because of this, I would be substantially raising the tariff. What do you make of Donald Trump's move here?
Well, it's entirely predictable. It's consistent with Trump's sort of international foreign policy. Again, his patience with the Russians has been exhausted. He thought he had a relationship with Putin. He thought that relationship would lead to peace in the Ukraine. It hasn't. He feels he's being played. And now, of course, his 10 to 12-day deadline is about to end. Steve Witkoff's going there to meet Putin, I think, for the 5th time. But I don't think anything's going to happen. So Trump is now moving towards shutting down Western, exports to and from Russia. So India has 20% of its imports from China, 10% of its imports are from Russia. So it does a huge amount of trade with Russia on the import side. And Trump is doing exactly as you'd think Trump would do, basically saying to the Indians, listen, this is not acceptable. We want sanctions against Russia. And if you're not going to play ball, then we're going to make it difficult for you. Don't forget, India exports a huge amount to America. So it's going to damage the Indian economy. And that's what Trump wants to do. He wants to stop the Indians trading so much with Russia.
Finally, on one more issue back here in Australia, the Victorian government is being mocked right around the world for their grand plan to tackle knife crime. As we know, crime is out of control in Victoria. And so what do? They get taxpayers to foot the bill for a machete bin. Look at this.
Outside the Victoria Police headquarters on Spencer Street, a purpose-built bin for a weapon wreaking havoc.
This is very important. Those knives, those machetes, create enormous damage.
Come September 1, it will be illegal to own a machete, and this is where Victorians are being asked to drop them off during an amnesty period that will run until November 30.
We've done this because we want to get these knives off the streets because these knives destroy lives.
Michael, is it really going to be effective? I mean, those who want to launch a machete attack, they might spot the bin and decide they're politely going to get rid of it?
No, that's exactly right. All those machete-owning Victorians will be rushing to these bins to fill them up with their machetes. They won't be able to wait. They were falling over themselves, Gab, to line up at these machete bins. I mean, what a preposterous, ridiculous idea. The Victorian Premier is basically a laughingstock. We're a lawless state here down in Victoria, Australia, as everyone knows. We're bankrupt and lawless. No, I think if people want to get rid of the machetes, they'll just discreetly put them in their rubbish bin somewhere or someone else's rubbish bin. But this is farcical and it makes Victoria a laughingstock.
Oh, yeah, it's done that exceptionally well, time and time again. Michael Kroger, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Gab.
Joining us now is Gabrielle Cuccia, former Trump White House staffer. Gabrielle, great to see you again. Let's start with Russiagate, because Attorney General Pam Bondi has reportedly ordered federal prosecutors to launch a grand jury investigation into former Obama administration officials, which will examine accusations of manufacturing intelligence about Russia's 2016 election interference in the US. Now, this comes after Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard released declassified documents last month, and Fox News reports that Pam Bondi believes there is clear cause for deep concern and a need for next steps. What are you expecting to come from this?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Gabriella. Absolutely. This is like the good news that we are all looking for here in the United States, especially, of course, with the conservative party, in the sense that this was something that President Trump had even ran on, saying that he was well and fully aware that there was a quote unquote deep state, that there was a higher power of which has garnered not only our own institutions within the United States government, but certainly amongst even our Five Eyes. And a lot of that documentation that we've seen even during the Biden administration that came on out was talking about how our own intelligence agencies were working with the Five Eyes to get around all these loopholes in executing surveillance on Trump officials, in which a lot of those officials were not very much trained when it comes to intelligence capabilities, and unfortunately fell at the hand of, say, our FBI services or even our CIA. So what I anticipate is that there's going to be more information. I think, just to be quite frank with you, this is good news for us, as I just stated in the beginning of this, but the ultimate question is whether or not those that are guilty of, say, utilizing allies or adversaries of other nations and weaponizing our own government to go after a political opponent, whether it's someone on the left or on the right. The biggest element is, are we going to see result? Will they get a trial? Will they be put behind bars if found guilty? Those are the types of results that I would be hoping for. I don't anticipate that happening until, maybe even years down the road. There's so much that we've talked about just in this term two, of which we've yet to even see actual justice when we talk about, Biden in the auto pen, or say, President Trump very famously saying on the debate stage that Hillary Clinton, if he was in charge, she'd be going to jail. We're still all holding on to those words because we want to see more details, and we want these people who have been projected to be of quote unquote deep state or not working in America's best interest to be held accountable, because those are very strong and very serious allegations. And a lot of America voted President Trump in for those purposes, to see those come to light. So at a bare minimum, I anticipate that the DOJ is certainly going to have hearings and have these people be called to the stand. But ultimately, what results out of that is the bigger picture. So I don't want to put anything down stamped in writing just yet, because there's a lot of other laundry list items that we haven't forgotten about yet, Gabriella.
Okay, well, let's talk about the Democrats. Elizabeth Warren has been praising Democratic socialist Ron Mamdani, who's running for New York City mayor. And as we know, he's as radical as it gets. He's previously called to defund the police, to Trump-proof New York City and shift the city's tax burden onto richer and whiter neighbourhoods. But here is Elizabeth Warren speaking alongside Mamdani at a campaign event.
When someone stands up and says, I will lead this city by making it more affordable. And here are my plans, real plans, plans to deliver on childcare, plans to deliver on housing, plans to deliver. We're going to experiment. We're going to try things on groceries. That is the Democratic message.
Elizabeth Warren was also asked by Fox News if Mamdani was what the future of the Democratic Party should look like, and her answer was, you bet. I mean, what do you make of this?
I hope that she's wrong, because that wouldn't be looking too hot. I mean, even if you look at, say, Elizabeth Warren from Massachusetts, or Mamdani coming from New York. I mean, as a New Yorker myself, New York and Massachusetts are one of the most expensive states to live in. Of course, albeit you have Boston and Manhattan driving those numbers, but on the outskirts as well, these individuals that live in these states are being hit by a terrible economy, by high grocery prices. And also, I laugh when she talks about the child care cost burden, because of the top 10 states in the United States, Massachusetts and New York lead the way when it comes to the high cost in child care. Again, these are Democratic states. So when they say that this is the future or this is the Democratic way, well, shoot, we being from New York, or say someone living in Massachusetts, has been living the Democratic way, and it hasn't been going well. Also, on top of that, you want to talk about the Democratic way. One of the stakeholders of the Democratic Party was fighting tooth and nail to maintain affirmative action. And I can't help myself. I have to always bring this up with Elizabeth Warren, but she was the same person that was exercising the Democratic way and using a Democratic program to get her own benefit in affirmative action by claiming that she was Native American on the bar exam. I will never let that one go. And that should tell people enough, outside of the horrible history of what it costs and what the effects are, whether it's crime or just your day-to-day childcare, the education system. I mean, shoot, you name it. It's not looking good for Massachusetts or New York. So there's such a delusion here that I'm not surprised that she's just latching on, and probably more likely latching on to Mamdani and saying he's the future, because who knows? I anticipate that this guy, he's pretty darn young. I think he's going to be around for a while. And I don't say that because I think that he's this great leader, but it's the same. I mean, how many times do we have to see the same blueprint? This is like an AOC 2.0 type of situation. And she's been stuck around the block for a long time at this rate. And everybody kind of laughed. And of course I do too, but these people are still here, and that's a bigger issue. So I think she's teeing herself up well to kind of cozy up with those that she ought to cozy up with, to stay in the position that she is in right here, right now. Otherwise, if they had half a brain, they'd realize what's going on in their own state, huh?
Well, while we're looking at the Democrats, let's look at who could be the next US president, of course, in 2028. And JD Vance is twice as likely to be the next president of the United States as any Democrat, according to Polymarket. Polymarket has his chance of becoming president at 28%, and then Gavin Newsom at 14%. What do you put this down to?
I put this down to, I honestly think a lot of people, again, I'm a conservative, there's no secret about it whatsoever, but I can say that the sentiment of those that are still, that I'm friends with that aren't necessarily conservative, actually JD Vance was very well received by them. And I was surprised by that because I think when he was initially announced as the vice president, there was a little bit of a lack of enthusiasm for, wow, this is a sucker punch kick right in the moment that he was announced. I remember distinctively on X between conservatives. And I think this stems from, to answer your question, Gabriella, is that the day that JD Vance walked on stage and did that vice presidential debate, that was such a pivotal moment for him in so many ways. And coupling that with how he's acted as a vice president, this is probably the least dormant vice president we've ever had. Conservatives were not happy with Vice President Pence at the time. I mean, obviously, people were not happy with Kamala Harris as the vice president. Obama, when Joe Biden was vice president, people were just always calling him crazy Uncle Joe, and he had hardly any stake in the game. We've really lost here in America that sense of seriousness, of responsibility for someone as the vice president. And we've seen it, I think, also by default because President Trump doesn't really have the doors closed for press. So you're seeing so many opportunities where the vice president has to actually take action, speak and answer and fulfill a role that we a lot of times just kind of put to the side. So I think that's really it. People are happy with him, whether you want to hyper focus on the latest with President Trump that people would like to debate about for sure. But Vice President Vance has been very consistent since the day that he went into those vice presidential debates, and he's only gotten stronger. And seeing this administration and him acting in it has almost, people might have been able to, or thought maybe to chalk it up as, oh, it was beginner's luck, or you probably were going to do pretty darn well against, say, Tim Walz. But it's so much more than that now. So I think that's where the numbers are coming from. And no one wants to see Gavin Newsom as president. You can take 2 seconds and look at his new PR stunt when he went on the Sean Ryan show and said that he would happily accept a firearm and that he has no issue with the Second Amendment. And then after that interview happened, and of course, individuals on the left and the right were bothered by Gavin Newsom cosplaying as some sort of conservative. It turns out, and this is public information now, is that Gavin Newsom did not accept that gun. And it was because he said in his own words that the California laws were too confusing for the average person, let alone himself. And he didn't want to have to deal with all of the hoops to jump through to obtain that firearm as a gift from Sean Ryan. So if you don't understand the Constitution and you're making your own state difficult in trying to exercise their natural rights, well, then you're probably not going to be president.
Well, there's no denying he's certainly eyeing off the top job, and I'm sure we will be hearing him on some more podcasts. But let's look at some issues such as the border. As we know, the Trump administration is keeping the border closed, and and the administration has been carrying out deportations of illegal immigrants. And the United States is now on track to see negative net migration for the first time in at least 50 years. Take a look at this.
How about net migration into the United States? Get this, it's down. It's going to be down at least 60%. We may be dealing with, get this, negative net migration to the United States in 2025. That would be the first time there is negative net migration in this country in at least 50 years. We're talking about down from 2.8 million in 2024.
Gabrielle, just how significant is this? What does this mean for America?
This means that we got exactly what we voted for, because we all know that this was a major platform item for the president on his campaign trail, and certainly in term one. When we were in term one, I remember how many government shutdowns we had just because there was such a threshold of which the Democrats didn't want to come to the table and talk and even have a conversation that was more or less focused, surprisingly, on DACA at that time for President Trump's term one. Term two, there's no concessions that he's willing to make, and he's locking down the border as he promised. I think a lot of this comes from the absolute successes of, I've covered a lot at the Pentagon, and the military, the Department of Defense being integrated into Border Patrol is a huge improvement. And this is a direct result of it, because you have NORTHCOM and SOUTHCOM working hand in hand with the Mexican government, and intel sharing, of course, when it's appropriate. I imagine not all of it. Also being able to utilize jammers for drones. There is so much going on there. CCOT in El Salvador. We have exercised every avenue at this moment that we possibly can in securing the border outside of the traditional, well, we need more manpower, or maybe we need to build a wall. We're starting to think a little bit more critically with the assets that we already have. So I think this is great news. I mean, I remember back in 2018, Yale University actually spearheaded a study in which they took numbers all the way from 2016, so from the early 2000s to 2016, and they were analyzing and trying to counter the U.S. Census Bureau for how many illegal immigrants were actually in the United States. And what they found in their study in 2018 was that the United States government was behind in their reporting by 50%. What they estimate, and similar estimations up to this day and age, was around 11.5 million. At that point, back in 2015, all the way up to 2018, they were saying the same numbers, and Yale University said, hold on, actually, it's higher. It's about 50% more. We're looking at 20 plus more million illegal immigrants being in the United States. So we've always had a problem in monitoring, and now it sounds like we're finally getting to a place where we can start quite literally from ground zero. And it also positions these individuals that genuinely do want to come to the United States when there is a clean, secure border with protocols, with manpower, and also individuals that can be protected and not being utilized to be smuggled or trafficked into our country for whether it's for human trafficking or for drug trafficking. So this is such a win. And it's, again, a direct result of exactly what we voted for.
Just finally, on the Maha movement, RFK Jr says that he's officially moving to ban food stamps from being used for soda. So this is to ban the purchase of sugary sodas using Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program benefits. He argues that tax dollars should not be going to food that can make children sick. Take a listen.
The U.S. taxpayer should not be paying to feed kids foods, the poorest kids in our country, with foods that are going to give them diabetes. And then my agency ends up through Medicaid and Medicare paying for those injuries. So we're going to put an end to that, and we're doing it step by step, state by state.
Advocates of the ban argue that this is going to improve public health outcomes and reduce long-term medical costs. What's your response?
Yeah, I think this is a great thing. At the end of the day, for SNAP, you have to focus on nutrient-dense foods. So to have that be applied to the quite literally the opposite when it comes to sugary foods and drinks, well, no one's getting their nutrition. It's cyclical. And that's when you have to start. It goes back to everything of our fiber of our being of not having to rely on the government. But if you're relying on the government for your money, you're applying that to food that's not good for you. By default, that food is poisoning your body and you're sick. And now you need to rely on the government to come in and handle health care for you. It's a never ending cycle. So I think this is a step in the right direction. I think a better step in adding to this, because I don't imagine this being the end and it shouldn't be the end, is that in the United States, healthier foods that don't have, say, your evil seed oils or your dyes or your pesticides, whatever it may be, your organic foods, all of them are significantly more expensive than the poisonous foods. And so what I would like to see from this government is build off on this sentiment, and moving forward, the healthier foods you would think that are just growing in the grass, that are coming from a tree, whatever it may be, that don't have as much ingredients, actually that lack of ingredients reflects in the pricing. And by that, then more individuals would be healthier, and it wouldn't be this mental gymnastics where people who don't have a lot of money are saying, well, you know what, I'm going to pay for something that's of less money for more bang for my buck, and that probably has higher calories to get me through, to get me and my family by, versus the healthier option in which we still are left hungry. So I think this is just one step into making all these very positive changes when it comes to our food system here in the United States.
Gabrielle Cuccia, former Trump White House staffer, thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour. Great to speak with you.
Thank you.
Joining us now is News Corp columnist Angela Mollard. Angela, great to see you.
Nice to see you, Gabriella.
Prince Harry has denied allegations that he gave his uncle Prince Andrew a bloody nose during an argument. This has been revealed in this new book about the Duke of York entitled The Rise and Fall of the House of York. And there are claims that there was this altercation between Prince Harry and Prince Andrew. They got in a physical altercation back in 2013 over something that Andrew said behind Harry's back. What do you make of this story?
Look, it's really interesting because in Spare we know that Harry and William had a punch-up. So it's not within the realms of possibility that Harry had a punch-up with Andrew. And the notion that the two most problematic members of the royal family could be, you know, way back then in 2013, could have been in this row. What would it be over? Look, there's also the claim in the book, Entitled is the name of it, which is a very interesting title for a book about Prince Andrew and his erstwhile wife. There's also the claim that Andrew warned Harry that he hadn't done his due diligence on Meghan Markle and that it acted hastily in marrying her. I'm not sure about that because in his Spare, there's a story about Harry and Meghan first meeting the Queen at Royal Lodge at where Andrew and his wife Fergie live. There's a lot of detail about Fergie teaching Meghan to curtsy and that sort of thing. I think Andrew and Fergie, who are always seeking kind of dominance or sort of recognition within the royal family, would have loved the fact that the heir to the throne would have brought his new girlfriend first to meet the Queen at their house. I just don't buy that level of whether the argument was about something else prior to Meghan being involved. I just can't imagine Andrew saying that to Prince Harry. I think at that time, when Meghan first came on the scene, everyone was super happy that she was going to be part of the family.
They were very welcoming until everything, of course, turned. But there has been a few more details coming out about bullying claims against Meghan Markle. It's been revealed that royal aides who accused Meghan Markle of bullying say that they were frightened of what she would do to them because of her capacity for revenge. Now, Meghan's always denied the allegations of bullying, but this has come from a journalist who broke the story back in May 2021 about the bullying claims. What more can you tell us? What exactly has been said here?
That's right. So Valentine Lowe went on a podcast and explained his book in greater detail. He, of course, as you said, broke those bullying allegations initially. He said that these staff were so impacted psychologically by working for her, and they had this notion that she had this, what he called, infinite capacity for revenge. Now, look, I think the question is, was Meghan a bully? And I think all the evidence points to the fact that she was. It's not just Valentine Lowe's book, which seems to have had multiple sources. There's also Jason Nauf, who used to work for the Meghan and Harry, and he's the one that initially brought the claim that led to the bullying investigation. I think the fact that he, a named person who is now working for Prince William, so the fact he is a loyal and trusted member within the royal family, he brought this issue to the palace. Then there was the bullying investigation that we never got the answers to. And then, of course, the Australian aide, Samantha Cohen, who had worked for the Queen and the family for so many years, she'd, in an interview with the Herald Sun, also mentioned that she had been pulled in to be questioned about the bullying allegations. Now, there's no smoke without fire. The fact that these still keep going, these allegations, and the fact that we know that the Sussexes have gone through so many staff, I think it's fairly accurate to say that Meghan is a bully.
Yeah, I think you're right. Look, the man who tried to abduct Princess Anne more than 50 years ago has been released from a psychiatric detention in Ball left hospital on probation back in 2019, and he's now been freed from this high security facility. In an interview with the Daily Mail, he claimed that he was innocent, it was all meant to be a hoax, but I suppose it brings back the story and what happened 50 years ago.
It does. It's so interesting. Princess Anne was 23 at the time, and she had so much gusto. She was being driven with her then husband, Mark Phillips, down the Mall towards Buckingham Palace. She'd been to an event, and this man held them up. He basically threatened Princess Anne. He wanted to kidnap her. He was asking for £2 million in a ransom. She, at the time, was super gutsy. She said something along the lines of, not not bloody likely, and I haven't got $2 million. And then the Duke of Edinburgh later said, look, had he captured her, it would have been, you know, having her in captivity would have been a pain in the neck because she's so feisty. But I think what's interesting about this is it shows the character of Princess Anne. Way back then, she was 23, and she had the wherewithal and the chutzpah to really stand up to this guy, who did actually shoot 3 members of her team. So there were 3 people that were injured in this altercation. As he said, he went to prison. Her greatest concern afterwards, in the interview that she gave afterwards, that he'd ripped her blue velvet dress, which was one of her favourites. So it goes to the character of the woman. She's the most hardworking royal. She doesn't bat an eyelid at anything. And I love her gutsiness.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I love that. Now, the royal family has said goodbye to one of its most treasured members. This is Queen Elizabeth's horse, Tyrone, officially retired from royal duties after working at nearly every royal occasion over the last 14 years. Now, this horse has been described as a gentle giant. What more can you tell us about him?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because we don't really think about all the things that are adjacent to, you know, we look at a nice carriage, the Princess of Wales is in it, she's going to Trooping the Colour, but we don't actually notice there has to be horses to carry that carriage, and a lot of work goes on behind the scenes to make them able and well equipped to do that work. So it's not just you pull a horse off the street, you know, tie it up to a carriage and off it trots. They have to be educated in loud noise, you know, because of course there's a lot of cheering along the routes of these events and that sort of thing. And the fact that they have to absolutely trust that a loud noise will not cause a horse to bolt, because, you know, you have members of the royal family within these carriages. This horse has worked alongside his sister and his mother, so he's now going to a lovely farm area where, you know, horses that have been in service are allowed to live out their days. Apparently, when he got there, there was a big neigh and he recognised his sister after all these years. But, you know, we know the royal family love their horses and their dogs, so I think there'd be a lot of, you know, pats behind the scenes.
Yes. And Prince William and Princess Catherine, they've been sailing around the Greek islands, living their best lives with their children, enjoying the European summer holiday. But there are reports a tender had to leave the super yacht that they were on to go out and get something special for Prince George. But we don't know what that is.
We don't know what it is, but we can assume, and the reporter that's been sent to Greece to try and find out what this was that Prince George wanted, I think has got a pretty good clue. So imagine you're on the yacht. They haven't run out of pasta. They haven't run out of curry, which is one of George and Charlotte's favourite meals. But what is it on the island of Zakynthos, I think that's the right pronunciation, that they so badly want? Well, in fact, this Greek island is one of the few that actually has a McDonald's restaurant on it. So while the journalist has gone there and he hasn't been able to all out confirm what it is, you can imagine a 12-year-old boy just having a hankering for some burger and chips, don't you think? So I think that, you know, but no one's coughing. They're all everyone's confirming that the tender was sent, but no one's prepared to confirm that it was a McDonald's run, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yes, it's a good sneaking suspicion that it could be McDonald's. Maybe George was sick of all the Greek food or all the food on the super yacht. But Angela Mollard, so great to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much.
That is Power Hour. Thank you for your company. Make sure you subscribe to Sky News Australia on YouTube.